No matter where the fuck I'm here.
Done. God for everybody.
Stefano fucked us all. I should have taken you and you.
We're gonna need you.
You should have.
To do some shit.
Because after what Marvin did to him, there is no version of this story where Kanan walks away quietly. Right now, the war inside Raising Kanan Season 5 is no longer simmering in the background. It has fully exploded into the open, and the fallout from the last episode is about to define everything that happens next. Marvin found out that Kanan was the one who killed Lou, his own brother, and instead of processing that pain the way a normal person would, Marvin turned it into pure violence. He beat Kanan half to death, right there on the floor of his own apartment, and for a moment it genuinely looked like Kanan was not going to survive the night. The only reason he did survive is because Jukebox showed up at the exact right second and pulled Marvin off him before it went any further. Think about that for a moment. If Jukebox had walked in 30 seconds later, this entire story could already be over. Kanan could already be dead. And that single moment, that razor-thin margin between life and death, is exactly the kind of tension this show has built its final season around. What makes this even heavier is how we got here in the first place. Raq is the one who told Marvin the truth about Lou. She did not do it out of anger or revenge. She did it because she had no other choice left. Stefano had already made it clear to her that Kanan had become a threat that needed to be dealt with. And Raq was trying to protect herself from Stefano by proving she could control her own house. So she handed Marvin the truth, knowing exactly what he might do with it. And in doing that, she indirectly put her own nephew's life on the line. That is the kind of decision this show has always specialized in, the kind where there is no clean answer, only survival. Raq did not want Kanan dead, but she also could not afford to look weak in front of Stefano. And that impossible position is exactly what is about to blow up in her face going into episode 6. Because here is what people need to understand about Kanan and Breeze right now. These two are no longer just allies working in the same territory.
We already cut Raq off at the knees.
Their relationship shifted into something closer to brothers, especially after Breeze told Kanan they are both sons of DEFCON. Whether that claim turns out to be completely true or not, the trust between them is real, and that trust is dangerous. When two men who move that fast and that ruthlessly start operating with complete trust in each other, the body count around them tends to rise fast. We already saw them take out one of Raq's people this season without hesitation. Now add a savage beating on top of that, a beating ordered indirectly by Raq herself, and you have every reason in the world for Kanan and Breeze to stop playing defense and start hunting. And that brings us to the title of episode 6, Dark Matter, which honestly could not be a more fitting name for where this story is headed. The official description tells us that Kanan and Tiana's relationship takes a turn, and that Garcia makes a bold move to get Jukebox the answer she has been chasing. On the surface, that sounds simple. In practice, both of those threads are about to collide with the Marvin situation in a way that changes the entire back half of the season.
Know anything about this?
Because right now, Jukebox is inching closer and closer to a truth that could set this whole family on fire. Garcia already told her that Famous was not killed by Raq's cops like everyone assumed. That means the real killers, Snaps and Pop, are still out there, still trusted, still walking around like nothing happened. And if Jukebox finally puts that information together and brings it to Kanan, that is not just going to be bad news. That is going to be the spark that turns this from a family conflict into a full-blown war with no way back. Now let's talk about where the promo actually takes us, because the moment Marvin sees Raq protecting Kanan again, something in him is going to snap in a completely different direction. This is a man who just beat his own nephew nearly to death, fully believing he was justified in doing it. And now he is about to watch the same sister who handed him that information turn around and try to shield Kanan from the consequences. Marvin is not going to sit with that quietly. He is going to feel betrayed, like the rules keep changing depending on who Raq wants to protect that day. And that resentment is going to start pulling him and Raq apart at exactly the moment they need each other the most. Keep in mind, Raq already tried once this season to remove Stefano as a threat by bringing in outside shooters. And that plan fell apart when one of them flipped sides, leaving Stefano fully aware of what Raq was trying to do to him. So Raq is not just dealing with Kanan and Breeze anymore. She is dealing with Stefano circling her from one direction, her own brother pulling away from her in another. and a son who now has every reason on earth to want her gone. That is not a family falling apart slowly. That is a family falling apart all at once. On the other side of this war, Breeze and Kanan are not wasting a single second processing what just happened. They are already moving into planning mode, and based on everything we know about how these two operate, they are not going to aim small. Breeze, being the more calculated one of the pair, is likely going to push for hitting Raq's people first, chipping away at her operation and her protection before going anywhere near Raq herself. Stefano, meanwhile, wants Raq dealt with directly, no games, no slow bleed, just removal. And that puts Kanan in a position where he essentially becomes the deciding vote between two very different approaches to the same war. Here is the part that should genuinely worry longtime fans of this character. After the beating he just survived, there is a real chance Kanan stops caring about restraint altogether. This is a young man who has already killed his own uncle without blinking. Now that same uncle has beaten him nearly to death on top of it. If Kanan decides he no longer cares whether Raq or Marvin lives through this, that changes the entire shape of the final episodes, because right now Marvin is the one person standing closest to Raq. And if Marvin becomes a target too, Raq loses her last real line of defense. And that is exactly why Marvin is about to end up standing beside Raq in this fight, whether their relationship is fractured or not. Because at the end of the day, the person Marvin wants dead more than anyone else right now is not Stefano. It is Kanan. That single motivation is strong enough to override whatever tension exists between him and Raq, at least for now. And it sets up a brutal possibility. If Kanan and Breeze move first and strike Raq and Marvin's side of this war, there is a real chance both of them barely survive that attack. And if they do survive, you can guarantee they are not going to sit back afterward. They are going to retaliate, and retaliation in this world rarely stays clean. It tends to reach the people closest to the target instead of the target itself, which brings us to someone who has quietly become one of the most important characters left standing in this story, Tiana. Because here is what a lot of people are underestimating right now. Tiana has genuinely fallen to the point where she no longer wants anything to do with working for Flossy. That kind of emotional shift does not go unnoticed in this world.
Ma, she said you can come back when you're 100%.
Pulling away, she just wants you to rest. There is a real chance she orders Marvin to eliminate Tiana for betraying her. Marvin, given where his head is at right now, would not hesitate to carry that order out. The only reason Tiana likely survives that moment is because Kanan steps in to stop it before it happens. But that intervention comes with a cost. If Kanan has to physically stop Marvin from killing someone he cares about, that is not going to cool things down between them. If anything, it is going to be the final push that convinces Kanan there is no more room left for hesitation, and that Marvin has to be dealt with once and for all. And that is before we even get to the part of episode 6 that might end up being the most explosive of all, because remember what the synopsis told us. Garcia is bringing Jukebox information, and every sign this season has pointed toward that information finally being the confirmation that Snaps and Pop, not Raq's Pops, were the ones who killed Famous. For Jukebox, this is not just another piece of street business. Famous was someone she cared about, someone whose death has quietly been eating at her for episodes now, watching her slip further and further away from the person we knew her to be earlier in this series.
I plan on it.
If Garcia hands her that confirmation, Jukebox is not going to sit on it. She is going to bring it straight to Kanan, and once Kanan knows the truth about who really took Famous from him, this stops being a war about respect or territory. It becomes personal in a way that nothing else this season has been. Kanan is going to want Snaps and Pop dead. And there is a real chance that pursuit pulls him even further away from any hesitation he had left. Here is where things get genuinely unpredictable, because this new information does not just threaten Raq and Marvin anymore, it threatens Breeze's position too. If Kanan turns his focus towards Snaps and Pop, there is a real chance that decision creates friction between him and Breeze for the first time all season, especially if Breeze feels like Kanan is getting distracted from the bigger picture. But there is another version of this that feels just as likely, and honestly the more dangerous one. Breeze could stand fully behind Kanan on this, and instead of pulling him back, he could be the one who pushes Kanan to go even further, suggesting they take out Raq, Marvin, Snaps, and Pop all at once, essentially wiping out every single person left from the old generation who had a hand in what happened to Kanan and to Famous. If that happens, this stops being a conflict with sides. It becomes a total purge, and given how close we are to the end of this series, there is a very real chance that is exactly the direction this is heading, since this is set up to be the final war of the entire show. It
Well, I
makes sense
did,
that
Lou.
stars would want to stretch this
Few
across
times.
more than one episode instead of resolving it all at once. But even with that in mind, there is one thing that feels almost certain heading into dark matter. Marvin's chances of making it out of this episode alive are getting slimmer by the minute, and if he does survive episode 6, it might only be a temporary reprieve before the ending catches up to him anyway. What makes this final stretch of raising Kanan so difficult to watch in the best possible way is that there is no longer a side to root for that does not come with blood on its hands. Raq built this entire empire on hard choices, and now those choices are circling back to take everything from her at once, her son, her brother, and possibly her own life. Marvin acted out of grief and rage and now has to live inside a war. He helped create the moment he raised his fist. Kanan and Breeze are moving with a kind of trust and ruthlessness that feels unstoppable right now, but that same trust could be the exact thing that gets one of them killed before this is over.
I'm
And
not
Jukebox,
fucking
the
calming
one
down,
person
Drew.
who
You
still
passed
had a
out
shot
the
at
other day,
staying
remember?
clean
And
in all
almost
of
fucked
this,
up our shit
is
with the
being
Russians.
pulled further into the dark with every truth she uncovers. Nobody in this story is walking away untouched, and that is exactly what makes the final episodes of this series feel less like a show and more like watching a family
And I
slowly
bet you
consume
didn't even know
itself
I
from
was
the inside
tapping
out.
that ass.
So here is the
Bitch.
real question heading into episode 6. Does Kanan get his revenge immediately? Or does this war
This
stretch
bitch
out and
Noma
take even more people
wanna
down
tell me
with
I'm
it
not needed
before
at
it's
work in a
finished? Who do you think does not make it out of dark matter alive? Drop your prediction in the comments right now because I want to see how many of you called it before it actually happens. And if breakdowns like this keep you locked in every single week, waiting for the next twist before it even airs, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because there is a lot more coming before this series says goodbye for good. Like this video if you felt everything I just laid out, and I will see you in the next one.
You ain't got no